Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
It's so good to see you. I'm
It's good to
good.
see you too. I
There
dressed up for the occasion.
you go. You gotta show those muscles.
I'm just coming from the gym. I had clients this morning.
Good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Who's the
gosh.
dog in the background?
That's Obi.
Oh, okay. I
I
haven't
guess
met Obi.
he's my co-host.
Nice. I like it.
Hopefully he doesn't start snoring. Um,
That's
I
funny.
don't usually I have something close by that I can like toss at him and be like, yeah.
You woke him up. Oh, I love
Goodness, hope he doesn't start squeaking on that ball. Goodness.
it.
Oh, there you go. I made the mistake of getting him a squeaky ball.
Yes, we do that too. We quickly take it away,
Yeah,
or they
yeah.
destroy it.
Uh-huh. Right, and get the squeaker out.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Well, welcome to my new podcast, Pathways.
Thank you.
Excited to have you here,
Am
Greg.
I guest number two?
You're actually guest number three.
Okay. So I've
Oh,
listened to Danielle's. That was an awesome one. Yeah.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I haven't published the second one. I think I'm going to publish yours and then hers so that there's a little bit of variety because
Nice.
she's also a therapist,
Got it.
just in terms of sequencing.
Yeah, I like it.
So just to let you know, I've already started recording,
Yep.
but
I saw that.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it tells you, right? Oh, so observant. So, yeah, I mean, just to get started, to let people, know and give people some context, who you are and how we know each other, gosh, I mean, I guess I've known you now for 25 years.
Yep.
That's
It's a
crazy.
long time.
Yeah, yeah, through, of course, my husband, Jason. You guys
Yep.
met many, many years even earlier than
Yeah,
that.
about 30 years ago. Yeah. It's crazy.
So crazy. Um, but yeah, you've been on quite a wild ride of a life, and I think that your story is, just really profound, and where you are today is just so incredible. And I think that people hearing your story could really benefit, regardless of, where they are and what they, may be struggling with. I think that we can all relate to this beast of addiction. It's on a spectrum. Everyone struggles with addiction,
Hmm.
whether they want to admit it or not.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
before we kind of really jump in, what I'd really love to do is just ask you this question. If someone really feels stuck in addiction right now, what would you say to them?
If they're feeling stuck and they want to, and they have a desire to stop, they want to get out and do something about it, there's some resources available to them. Um, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, obviously all the 12-step groups have hotlines that you can call 24 hours a day. So you could Google that. There's treatment resources all around all over the country for certain uh, that can get you into detox or rehab. And I don't know what that would be off the top of my head, but you could Google that stuff. Um, but it depends on where you're at in that process. If you're struggling with an addiction that uh, includes like alcohol or benzos or other hard drugs like that, you probably would want to go through a detox facility that could medically detox you safely instead of doing it on your own. Because especially with alcohol and benzodiazepines, those will, if you try to detox from those yourself and you're pretty advanced in your addiction, then you could die from that detox, from the withdrawals. So definitely want medical help with that. And then also, just with some of the other stuff with meth, I mean, it's so psychologically addicting and cocaine and things like that, that a detox would be super fruitful because they can then link you up with rehabs or treatment centers that can get you the help you need and get you that time away from the drug or the alcohol. And then from rehab, they typically align people with, a 12-step fellowship, but there's lots of others. Smart recovery. Uh, there's there's a Buddhist-based recovery, 12-step kind of network. There's all kinds. There's even a Christian one, Celebrate Recovery. So there's lots of different resources outside of rehab too. So kind of
Yeah.
just depends on where they're at, and if they want help. A lot of people can. I deal with a lot of them where they'll get a little time sober, or they just don't know if they have a problem yet. And so, typically, what I would ask a new person in alcohol with if I'm dealing with a 12-step person is I would say, if you don't know if you're an alcoholic or an addict, if you start to drink or use and can't stop, or if once you stop you can't stay stopped, you might be an alcoholic or an addict. And so that's kind of the first qualifying questions I would ask to determine if they're quote unquote an alcoholic or an addict.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So steering this conversation a little more towards you, I'd love to just ask you, like what was life like before addiction for you?
Before,
Yeah, like what were your, kind of your early influences or some turning points that you feel like kind of led you down the path of struggling with addiction?
so growing up, I was always I had grew up in a good family, middle income family. I didn't have a rough childhood as far as trauma goes, really. I had some sex trauma from a neighbor who sexually molested me, and so that kind of added to that. But I don't think it was the main impetus or the linchpin of it. You know, I think just from a young age, I felt out of place and awkward. I can remember a time when I was when we went to play with my cousins at my great aunt's house, and I remember I hadn't met them yet, and I remember just feeling like awkward and afraid to go up there to talk to them, and it was just a weird situation where I just felt out of place, didn't feel comfortable in my skin, didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I didn't really know how to communicate. It was an interesting, and I didn't really see that until in retrospect, many years later. But that's one memory that I can remember where I felt out of place. And I could see it through my childhood, through school, where I would get picked on, always trying to fit in, trying to do whatever I needed to do to fit in and to be liked. So I was always looking for outside validation from people, to be liked, and I'd get picked on once in a while, and so that added to that. Um, but yeah, I remember this early childhood memory of coming downstairs. I was like 5 or so. I'd come downstairs from waking up, and I remember my mom would be sitting there at the kitchen table doing her makeup and drinking her coffee. And I had this joyous anticipation for the day that I would wake up excited to go see my mom doing her makeup, and I could sit there with her while she's doing her makeup and drinking coffee, and we just talk or whatever. And she'd give me a little coffee sometimes, and I loved it. And somewhere along the line, I lost that, and I was riddled with anxiety and social awkwardness and things like that. So really, I think it stemmed from, for me, uh, the atmosphere, the surroundings that I was in, the people that I was around, the people that I was hanging around. They were doing it, and that was why I was doing it. That's why I started drinking. And my dad uh, was a drinker. He drank every day, alcoholically, for many years. So I saw that side of it. But I don't know that that's why. They say it's genetic. I don't know if it's genetic or not. I remember my dad gave me my first taste of beer, and I liked it. But I don't know if I liked the taste of it or the feeling of it. I just liked it because he was including me in something.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and I didn't get that a lot from him, because he'd come home from work, get on the couch and start drinking, and that was his deal.
Right. And it's like that's what I think society is like, that's what grown-ups do. That's what when you get grown up and mature, you get to drink alcohol. This is the reward for having privilege, if you will, and freedom, right? Privilege and freedom equals you can now drink.
Me and my buddy used to steal our parents' cigarettes, and we'd sneak off into the field and smoke these cigarettes, hiding and smoking. I remember saying, "I can't wait till we have our own car and we can use the ashtray in our vehicles to ash our cigarettes in." I thought that was just the coolest thing.
Right, like the rite of passage that,
Right?
designated. It's so funny, right? That we don't have ashtrays in cars anymore.
No,
Oh,
I
I'm
put my
quite
change
amazed.
in those. Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Um, so on that path, I mean, I'm wondering if there was like a specific moment where you realized like something needs to change here. Like something maybe drastic needs to change. And what was that like for you?
Yeah, so it took me a long time to get to that place, because I was just blindly, automatically doing it because it was just what was around. It was what to do. It was always smoking marijuana, and as I got out of high school, I started doing other stuff, and I hit that place when I was 20 years old and I went to jail for stealing a motorcycle, and it happened to belong to a police officer. It was his personal motorcycle, and he caught up with me, and I got arrested for that, but also a bunch of other charges from related to drugs. And it was at that point when I'm sitting in the jail cell, I said, huh, and I knew I was pretty bad off, but I didn't really see it and didn't really realize because I wasn't consciously aware of what I was doing. I was just moving through life for the next fix at that point. I was so far gone that I missed a lot of that, and I had some meditation experiences in between there, and even through those experiences, with Jason, we'd spend a lot of time. I was 18 when Jason and I were hanging out a lot, and we were doing a lot of meditation and things like that. But a lot of it for me, not for Jason, but for me, revolved around, smoking marijuana. I'd have to do that before I'd meditate, or we'd do mushrooms or whatever, and that was kind of the way I would meditate. So I didn't have a grasp or an awareness of what was going on in me and in myself with that until I was locked up and my world came crashing down.
What do you think drew you to the even, with the, addition of substances to meditation? Do you remember enjoying or liking the, experience of meditation or being curious about it? Or like, what was your, how did you think about it back
Oh,
then?
I loved it, because I remember driving. Me and Jason were hanging out real tough back then, and I remember driving down the road, and I remembered I had this awareness all of a sudden, and I was still heavily intoxicated on marijuana or whatever. But I'm driving down the road, and I'd catch people's eyes, and I'd be smiling, and I'd get that response back, and so I was getting that response from other people, and so I really enjoyed it. I started to become aware of that, how I would treat the world would treat me back in a vague kind of sense. I didn't really understand it yet, but I started to realize that, um, and I got turned on to these tapes by a dad about positive thinking, and so I was kind of on this positive thinking trip, if you will. And then Jason was, a big part of that too, where, you know, but it's still kind of the impetus of me hanging out with anybody, even though Jason kind of confronted me a few times, like, hey man, uh, you got to slow down or whatever the conversation was. I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm good. So, but I love meditation.
Yes. And I can't wait to talk about your recent meditation accomplishment, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Um, so I wanted to ask you, you know, in the journey of, where you've gotten to today, relapse has been a bit of a part of your journey. And it's, I think widely known that relapse is a part of recovery, right? That's a saying that you hear a lot of
Yeah,
people seem to, even when they're just trying to quit smoking cigarettes, they'll try a few times before they figure it out and get it right, right? You got to kind of figure out what's your thing.
yeah.
Um, how can you speak to that experience for yourself that uh, might be helpful for others to hear?
So, my partner Saya, she has this. She says, because we hear this a lot in the rooms and stuff, where relapse is a part of recovery. And she says relapse isn't a part of recovery; it's a part of active addiction. And and that's it's basically untreated alcoholism or untreated addiction, where relapse is imminent without uh, treatment. And so for me, that would be working the 12 steps. Getting through the steps, and with that comes um, the freedom, the protection, because through that process you gain access to this higher power, whatever that may be, and then that in itself will protect you from that alcohol or drug, and through all the other processes of taking an inventory and making amends and those things. Uh, it clears out the wreckage of your past. You clean the house, clean your house, and then it enables you. That's the real treatment of addiction. Obviously, treatment and rehabs and stuff is fruitful. You get to learn the science behind addiction and how that affects your brain and your physiology. Um, but I'm a firm believer that it's a spiritual disease. It's mind, body, and spirit, and so if you don't attack all three of those, then you're going to be doomed to relapse. And then on top of that, it takes uh, a daily effort to stay connected with that spirit, that source, whatever that is, your higher power. And also in recovery, you stay connected to this process where for me, it's a daily inventory at night. I take an inventory of what my day was. Where did I act out my character defects, things like that? Do I need to make amends? So it's a daily cleaning up of your life that keeps you connected to the recovery process. But for me, um, so you mentioned relapse. I've relapsed a few times, and in my 20s, I had 8 years clean, and we were doing Kundalini yoga together and stuff like that. um, and so I had some time, but a lot of that time was filled with busyness, with work, with kids, with a lot of stuff, and I wasn't really doing the recovery stuff as often. I do it once or twice a week. I go to a meeting or whatever, and I'm a firm believer in the meetings because I've tried all the other stuff. I've tried church, I've tried the gym, I've tried going to jail, I've tried doing it for my kids, I've tried doing it because people said I should have the willpower to do it. I've tried all these different things, tried changing wives, as you know. None of that stuff worked. Trying to fix it from the outside in, it didn't really. I didn't really get any freedom until I worked on it from the inside out. Um, and so when I turned 40, I relapsed, stayed out for 12 years trying to get back clean and sober, and I'd get a little bit of time here and there, but it and then when I turned 40, I found a different 12-step fellowship, and the way the book talked to me, it basically highlighted the spiritual aspect of it. And the other program I was in did too. I guess I missed it. I didn't really grasp the concept of that. Um, but I really started diving deep into that stuff, into meditation, and then also different authors, Emmett Fox and Joel Goldsmith, um, you know, James Allen, a lot of different authors that helped propel me into this spiritual journey that I'm on today. And it coincided well with the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll just say it, and that's the program I use and where I go currently. But um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. It almost, and I guess I'd be interested in your take on it with that reflection in terms of like, does that phrase feel either negative or damaging or like a negative prediction that is sort of destabilizing in maintaining what you've worked so hard for?
affirming that I'm an alcoholic. You mean?
No, affirming this idea that relapse is a part of
Oh,
recovery,
yeah,
almost like it could happen, like
yeah.
gonna happen again, like this impending doom,
It's
if
a
you will.
self fulfilling prophecy, most certainly. Because if I'm told relapse is a part of recovery, then that door's open. That's cracked open. And every time I've had the door cracked open, whether it be with marijuana or the idea that I might be able to drink or use again down the road if I just get enough time, or get these things back in my life, or get the relationships back with my kids, then that idea is there and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
So have you changed your mindset around that whole phrase that like, no, relapse is not a part of recovery?
Right. I have. And this time I got, so I had a brief relapse about 3 years ago. Um, and it was for 3 weeks. And I wasn't doing the things I mentioned earlier, praying and meditating. I would do it just here and there. If I prayed, I'd pray and then I'd forget about it right away. I wasn't doing this nightly review. I wasn't doing the daily disciplines of that process. And then also, I'd always, I'd always kind of, I've had that experience of relapse in the back of my mind, and I was listening to somebody speak from the podium at a meeting, and she said, and it's so simple, but it was profound to me, and it hit me in my soul. She said she used to be a chronic relapser. That's what they call that oftentimes. She said that somebody told her that she didn't have to do that anymore, and I heard that. I was like, huh. Yeah, I don't have to do that anymore. That doesn't have to be my story anymore. And then I heard that, and I got sober this time and clean, and I made the commitment. I'm not going to do that anymore. That's not my story. I don't have to do that anymore. I have to experience that anymore. I've experienced that. I know what it does. I know where it goes. It doesn't lead anywhere. And I've known that before, and I've thought I'd surrendered so many times before. But for some reason, I needed to get to that place where I'm like, I committed, and they say one day at a time and all that stuff, but I committed that time. I'm not going to drink or use anymore, no matter what. And for me, that doesn't mean it's a thing of willpower, like, oh, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life, no matter what. It means I'm going to take action daily to maintain and to continue to grow spiritually, mentally, all every way I can, um, to ensure that doesn't happen. And it's a certain spiritual protection that I get, where I and Jason's been trying to get this through my head for a long time, and help connect me with this. But finally, I made that connection where I need that spiritual peace, and I can rely on it. I've been so scared of it all my life, for
Right.
whatever reason.
Yeah, it's so supportive. Such great research out now. There's I don't remember her name, but I read a book and she did she's a, I think she's a psychiatrist, but she's, a mental health doctor that is a researcher. And she was very science based in all her stuff for a very long time. And she found spirituality and in the circles of science it's not really looked too highly upon, and she decided to really take it on herself to do a lot of research on people that have spiritual beliefs, that have a belief in something greater than themselves,
Mm.
and look at all different kinds of aspects of their life. And what she found overwhelmingly was that their mental health was better. Like it doesn't matter
Overwhelming.
what you believe in, like it doesn't
Doesn't
matter. As
Yeah,
long as you feel like there is, a bigger plan, a bigger power, something going on besides just me, myself, and I,
yeah,
uh, it's really supportive. So that's wonderful to hear.
yeah. And it's been cool. It's been a selfish thing in the past, but now um, it's so ineffable to try to even put words to any of it. But so much of it is about helping other people, about being others minded, and how can I be supportive and helpful to other people.
The service piece, I think, is so profound. Would you find that that's a big part of your recovery?
Yeah, they say in the rooms, you can't keep it unless you give it away. And so that's a big part of it. And I do it out, in and out of the everywhere I go. It's not anything I've kind of. I mean, I try to be helpful, but it's something that just moves through me. I'm like a conduit where I just end up being helpful to people. It's second nature to me. But yeah, without that service piece, I don't know that I would survive. Recovery.
I think that's true for many people.
Right.
Yeah, right? Like in many different aspects of life, like service. Even I mean, of course, in the yoga world, it's huge. Like seva,
Mm-hmm.
selfless service that you do
Mm-hmm.
is like such a big part of the teaching. So making a little pivot here,
Hmm.
I'd love to know in terms of, first of all, I actually want to go back because I have this question about the word recovery.
Yeah.
And like, do you identify as like, I'm someone in recovery? And does that word like really still resonate with you? Do you feel like that's because it almost reminds me a little bit of like relapse is a part of recovery. Like it's almost like, well, okay, so you do these things every day. So okay, so the word is like an ongoing process.
Right.
So do you identify it as an ongoing process?
Yes, definitely. So I do identify as a person in recovery. Uh, there is a term they use called, say, recovered,
Hmm.
um, and they use that in the big book. Um, and I believe that that references to the idea that the obsession to drink or use has been lifted from me. I don't think about it. I don't obsess on it. I don't. It's not part of my life anymore. The process of recovery is living life, in service, being mindful, living in meditation, doing these things where I'm taking inventory and continue to help others through the journey. And that's where I'm in recovery. But I don't struggle. I don't, I'm just like, I'm not going through life recovering every day, white knuckling it. It's nothing like that. It's the opposite of that.
Nice. Yeah, feeling that sense of um, would you use the word like just wellness and thriving?
Yeah. Freedom, wellness, thriving. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
love it.
That's cool.
So, speaking of thriving, what inspired you to start lifting and become a personal trainer?
Well, what inspired me to start lifting was what I mentioned early on in our interview is the bullying piece. I was getting picked on early on in elementary school, and come eighth grade, I decided that wasn't going to be happening anymore. So I was going to get jacked, and so I started doing curls in my room, and I started getting muscle on, and people quit picking on me, and you know, and I got a whole host of new friends through that, which was a double-edged sword for me. But that's what got me inspired to lift. And then I just got into athletics. I was playing sports through high school and stuff. I did a lot of different sports, and then after that, even in my active addiction, I was going to the gym and trying to stay fit. Or I'd have breaks and go to the gym, or that'd be a lot of times how I'd try to fix that addiction piece in me. Um, and then about 7 years ago, I found this AA group that I was going to, and this fellow Gary, he was running this program called Purpose, Passion, Prosperity, Service, and his mission behind that program was to help people, ultimately geared towards people with 10, 15, 20, 30 years of sobriety who had grown stale, miserable, and perhaps even contemplating suicide with that long-term recovery. And so that was his passion and purpose behind that, is to help people find their purpose and their passion in life, to help them find this new peace in themselves, to help them keep going and revitalize their life. And so I took that class, and because I wanted to find my purpose, and I was painting houses at the time, and which I didn't so much love. It was a means to an end. So I took his class, and I found that personal training might be something that I could do, that I would love, that I could even maybe make money doing. So I took a stab at it. I was doing it part time for about 6 months while I was still painting, and I kept the door open for that. And it wasn't until I completely closed the door on painting, and because my back was hurting, I'm done with this. After my one paint job I did, it was a big one. I was just sick of it, and I said, I'm done. I sold all my stuff, and I made the jump. Almost like that Indiana Jones scene where he's stepping off into the. He has to have the faith to step out onto that step, and when he takes that step, it appears. That was kind of the experience I had, where I was just going to have faith that it's going to work out. I didn't have rent. I was moving into a new place. I didn't have a deposit for it. Um, Starting this new job, a couple other variables, and I ended up getting my first client, getting my deposit, getting my rent paid, uh, and it just worked out, and that began my journey. And
How long ago was that?
it's been 6 years since that, and it was right before COVID. So
Oh, yeah. And so you do a lot of personal training,
Hmm.
face to face, one-on-one in the gym.
Hmm.
Do you also do other kinds of training and
Yeah,
coaching virtually?
I do a little bit of virtual training, online training. I've coached some people via FaceTime. It's a little harder. Taught some posing, so I teach some bodybuilding. I coach bodybuilders for bodybuilding shows, all men. I don't really know the female aspect of it, so I keep stay in my lane and work with guys only in that aspect. Um, and then yeah, and I train some guys virtually, and it's not really my thing. I like the one-on-one interaction. So, but that limits my time, you know.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
train about 30 hours a week.
What do you think like getting physically stronger does for yourself and for other people, kind of like psychologically?
I think psychologically it helps. It gains confidence. Obviously, it helps. There's some sort of synapses or dopamine release that happens when you start working out. That you release something, dopamine. I would imagine that makes you feel good. And so when I work out, I feel better. It's a good therapy for me mentally. I notice when I don't work out, I get grouchy a little bit. Um, that may be just a mental thing, but it does help mentally, and it just certainly helps with confidence and things like that. It makes me feel good about myself.
I
But
feel
that's about it. Yeah,
Yeah, when I don't work out, and every day I'm like, why does it
yeah,
feel so stressful?
yeah. It's a big stress reliever, for sure. And
Well,
there's another piece to it though that I've struggled with for a time with the ego piece. I've had to really struggle with my ego, especially at the gym I'm at. It's a bodybuilder gym, and so a lot of big guys, and I'm a pretty big dude, and I like to think that that makes me somebody, or that people like me because of that, and it's a small piece of the puzzle, really, when I really look at it. So I've really done a lot of work to detach from that idea and just be who I am and take the ego out of it. It's a tough one. That ego's a bear.
right. And I mean, I think this is where all of this starts, and I think we hear so
Uh,
much about like you shared at the beginning about how, you maybe felt a little different or you didn't fit in or you wanted to
mhm.
belong. And I think it is a process of, I think it's Brene Brown that says the difference between fitting in and belonging, right? Like belonging is we are ourselves and we belong just because we are. And,
Hmm.
fitting in is changing who we are.
Hmm.
And that's not true belonging
Right.
because it's a lie. It's not who we really are.
Right.
Um, and
I love
I think
that.
it is something that I think it's a constant reminding ourselves of like, if someone doesn't like me, I'm not going to die. It's okay. Like, there's a really great book called The Courage to be Disliked
Ooh.
that I read recently, and there's such good stuff in there about that, that process of letting that go, the ego work, just like you said. I
Yeah.
think it is ongoing for all of us.
Yeah.
It's embedded in our survival.
Hmm. Yep. And it
Um,
permeates every aspect of my life, relationships, everything. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So you recently had a huge milestone.
Hmm.
So exciting. And you celebrated 1,000-day meditation streak. Oh my goodness gracious. This is so incredible. Tell me about this. What made you start and start keeping track? And, you know, how did it feel at first? And, was it your plan to just try and create this big, long, incredible streak? Or how did this happen?
Yeah. I thank you for celebrating that.
So cool.
Because it's a big deal for me to do something consistently like that, long term. Uh, you know, it was just a plan to do it one day at a time. I knew that it was one of those things that I wasn't doing when I was previously clean and sober, and it's a big part of that. Um, but it's part of the 11th step, and it's prayer meditation. And so I do that every morning, and I started light. And I'm no stranger to meditation. I don't, it's easy for me to sit and drop in very quickly. And I can sit for a long time. But when I started out, I just started small because I know myself. I'm going to try and meditate for 5 hours and try to obtain, spiritual enlightenment and ascension. But I started out with, I think I started out with like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, maybe it was 5 minutes, something small, and that's where I started, just doing it every day since I got sober this time, and
What does
it's
your
been
meditation look like? You just sit quiet or do you
it's
have a song?
changed. Yeah, typically it's changed a little bit through time. I've kind of experimented with different stuff that I've already tried, but it started out just I put some light, music on. Nawang Kichog. It's one of my favorite Tibetan flute artists, and I would just put him on and I meditate for a few minutes, and I put a timer on and I call it. And if I'd meditate throughout the day, later on that day, then that's just a bonus. But it non-negotiable, I would do 5 minutes, whatever it was at the beginning, and uh, and that's just how it's been every day. I made it a non-negotiable. I absolutely, no matter how sick, glad, mad, or sad I am, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to do that nightly review at night. So I've done that every day since then. Um, and so it's, like I said, it's changed and transformed. I've done guided meditations just for a little change up. Um, I've done mantras, done chants a little bit here and there, but mostly it's just sitting quiet. I like sitting in silence a lot. Um, so yeah, and it hasn't changed much as far as time goes. I'll do it for 8 minutes. I like the number eight for whatever reason, so I'll do that. But that's about it. And then uh, sometimes I'll close the day with meditation. It's a good way to close out the day. Sometimes when I'm feeling stressed or whatever, I'll sit down and I'll meditate for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I won't put a timer on it. I'll just let it go. I'll time it, but I don't put an alarm on it. I'll just see, how long did I meditate for? It's interesting that when I hit this 18-minute mark or so is when I hit that mark, something happens where I'm seeing different lights, something changes physiologically, spirit. I don't know what happens, but something changes. I have an experience where I feel more connected, more. It's an interesting deal, and I'd like to investigate that more. But
How do you think this commitment has affected your recovery and your kind of your emotional state and
it's been incredibly transformative, and it's been in retrospect that I see it, where I am able to deal with things differently, much more calm, slower to stress, slower to anger, most certainly. Um, just more mindful, more aware, uh, much more calm. My blood pressure's gone down. Um, yeah, so there's physiological, consequences as a result of it. And then also just spiritually, I feel more connected, you know, more aware.
yeah, how does that kind of like show up for you? Like if someone is listening and they don't really meditate, um, you know, how could they understand that? Like, do you have any kind of, if you pluck a little example out for them?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's been more of a transfer. It's been a long-term transformation where because I'll meditate and then I'll go drive in traffic, and I'll let somebody in, and they won't wave or something, and you son of a, so I can easily get there right after meditation. But I catch it quick, and I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting. He's still in there. But yeah, I think just the practice over and over and over again, it builds a momentum in you. It builds a confidence. It builds a pride thing that I'm doing this every day, regardless of the outcome. Just something for me to settle myself to it's brought me a lot of peace, inner peace, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Like it doesn't change our sort of our instincts or our thoughts. Like we still might have all these thoughts, but instead of the train kind of running down the track and then you cutting someone off in traffic and da 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 da, it doesn't snowball, right? Like there's that awareness that it sounds like that's opening up where you can be the observer a little bit more and be like, oh, wow, okay, that wasn't very nice. And okay, moving on.
There, yeah, I definitely it has helped change my thoughts, and I've read a lot of books in between and stuff. So I've been able to become much more of an observer. This author Michael Singer, he talks about in his book, yes to everything. He says yes to everything in it, but he says this example of, imagine you're sitting next to yourself on the couch, and the person next to you, your other self, is the one, your thoughts talking, and it's just this incessant, constant babble of our brains, and that helps me see, and be that observer, like how rampant and crazy my thoughts can get, and so it's helped me change the way I think, change how it's given me an awareness about my thoughts, really.
Yeah,
Meditation is.
I think it's so valuable. I think that piece is so valuable. Um, just being aware of kind of what happening and that witness, like you shared. I think that's one of the most valuable parts. I find myself too, um, and you've inspired me. I've gotten on a little streak myself every morning now since, I haven't really, maybe I miss a morning in there. I haven't been really keeping track, but I've been really meditating daily now for a while. And uh, I find that like the the problems or the thoughts or the things that really are important that need to bubble up
Mm.
tend to bubble up for me during the
Hmm.
meditation.
Yeah.
And I can, either process or let it go or and then the other thing that I find really cool about meditation is I get so much creative inspiration. I get my best ideas for like everything in life when I meditate. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's a good idea. I'll make that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Like, ah, it feels like a little manifestation being, connection with spirit that I can speak and listen and create, I think so many people think they're supposed to sit and clear their mind, and like that's not
Yes.
the thing. You're not ever clearing your mind.
No. The more you try, the worse it's going to be.
Right. I mean, that's like the most common misconception, I think.
Right. Oh, I can't think any thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that you get some creative inspiration while you're meditating?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely, because I'm listening, Yeah. So I get a lot of inspiration that way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We um we went to the mass service, the girls and I, yesterday for Easter, and it was a really cool service. And there was lights and music and a band and all the things, and like the whole experience was really cool. Um, but we had a really great conversation last night around the dinner table because I had like a little bit of time in the afternoon to lay in the hammock, and I was just reflecting on the experience and kind of how different this sort of church experience is from the church experience I had growing up.
Mm.
Growing up, it was it was, there was a little choir, but really it was quite simplistic, and there were no flashing lights. It wasn't a fancy like, there
Hmm.
was and we would say our fathers and Hail Marys, but it was like the same sort of prayer over and over, sort of monotone that in my mind it's like the words would sort of just go away like a mantra, and then you would have this connection time, and there was built-in quiet time. I was raised Catholic, so we'd go and we get communion, and then everybody went back to their pew and had their communion and would just pray, and we waited for everybody in the whole church to get their communion. So I mean, this could be 15 minutes of sitting quietly that you're just with your thoughts. And it occurred to me yesterday that this experience, while beautiful and full, um, the word that came to mind was, like when I was trying to describe it, was show, which isn't bad. There can be a great show of spirituality, but there
Mhm.
was really absolutely no time built in where you could sit quietly and listen,
Mhm.
where you could just like say like, what is God trying to tell me right now?
Mhm.
Like there was just so much input. And of course, this is everywhere in our life, right? No,
Mhm.
everywhere we turn now, input, 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 input. So I think this meditation piece, regardless of your religion, regardless of where you go to church or don't go to church or practice, whatever it is, like if you have the desire to connect with some sort of something greater than yourself, sitting and meditating and having this connection like you're sharing is just so profound to like you said, to listen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and something that it's given me as well, in the midst of all this chaos, is the ability to pause and take a breath and notice when I'm chaotic, or no, so I'm much more contemplative and aware of where I'm at, uh, emotionally and physically and spiritually and mentally. You know.
Yeah, I can feel that in your nervous system too. Like there's just like a settling, that I can feel in you.
Mm, it's
Really, really
different.
beautiful. Um, so I guess where are we at here? What else did I want to make sure to ask you or touch on? Um, do you think that people can really change at their core?
Hmm,
Why or why not?
great question. Yeah, I do absolutely. Um, there's got to be a reason. I think people need to be given a reason. If they don't have a reason to change or seek something greater or different, why would they? Um, and usually that comes by way of trauma or pain, um, something negative or seemingly negative in their life would get them to a place of changing, assuming that their need for change is they're not living right at their core, and that would inspire a need for change. So, obviously that would be the impetus for a change. Because without that, I wouldn't, why would I seek a higher power? Why would I seek a change if I didn't think there was a need for it? So for me, it took that trauma, that took all these experiences of hardship and pain to get me willing to change or seek change or even think I needed to change at my core. But yeah, I know people can, because I've been able to change, and I don't know if people can do it on their own. I need help through therapy. I got a therapist to help me through the sexual stuff, through uh, the addiction stuff. I mean, I've sought all avenues of that stuff spiritually, but also I've seen, like, Say is my partner, and we've recently kind of mended a relationship with him, her ex-husband, recently. His father died, um, and I didn't know him really before, but she says since this reconciliation has happened, she's seen a change in him, and a part of that is his father died. He's going through therapy, but also we have dinner with this guy every Wednesday night, sometimes more often than that. Like last week we hung out with him 3 times, because he gets to come see the kids and hang out with the kids, and then we just all let so much of the ego thing. We just let go of that stuff, and then but I've seen a change in him even since I've been hanging out with him in this little bit I know about him. So I think people can change at their core. Just different situations and circumstances will bring people to change.
Uh, I would agree. I definitely think people can change. Okay, I got what I call my soul spark five.
Hey, I like it.
Five final questions for you.
Okay, Soul Spark 5. I dig it.
What's one thing you've learned on your healing journey that you think everyone should know?
If if you don't love yourself, no one else can. So learn to love yourself. Learn to value yourself.
Yes. Life gets hard. What's one practice or tool that helps you come back to yourself?
Breath. One deep breath will do it.
What does the word healing mean to you right now in this season of your life?
Um, it means peace, freedom, opportunity, um, self love. Um, yeah.
Uh, if you could go back and whisper one message to your younger self, what would you say?
Oh boy. Love yourself. Value yourself. Take care of you. Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, what's lighting you up or giving you hope these days?
So much love, life, God, um, people, quiet time,
I love it.
abundance. Yeah. So much.
Oh, great. Your hands and heart are full.
Yes. Very much so.
I'm so happy for you, Greg.
Thank you. It's good to see you. You look great.
Oh, thanks. So do you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So great to see you on the show. Where can people find you? They want to
Yeah.
meet you and get
I've
some
got a,
advice and talk or what have you.
yeah, I'd love to talk, talk about whatever. I have a website, American Gains with a Z, GAINZ is my website. I'm on Instagram, American.gains with a Z. Um, I'm on Facebook, just my name, Greg Maloney. Yeah, that's where you can find me. All my contact info is there.
Awesome. We'll link all that in the show notes. And anybody listening, just check in the show notes. And thanks so much for being here, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris Anne. I
My
love your
pleasure.
podcast. Can't wait to hear more. Keep it
Yay.
going. Yeah. All right, my friend. I love you.
I love you too.